In this video, I'm going to show you how to find the least common multiple, or LCM, of numbers. The least common multiple is the smallest multiple that two or more numbers have in common. So let's start out with 3, 6, and let's do 15. When I'm looking for the least common multiple, I simply start listing the multiples of each of these numbers, which means I'm going to skip count by those numbers. I always start with my largest one, and I just do a few multiples at a time. And what I'm looking for is multiples that they have in common. So I want to find a number that is on all three lists. When I find a number that is on two lists, obviously then I can check my third list for that number. And if it's not there, then I just have to keep going on all three lists. So I'm going to start with 15. I'm going to skip count. 15, 30, 45, 60. I usually just do a few at a time. 16, or 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. So I have found one that is on both lists, 30. Now I'm going to check to see if it's on my last list. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and yes, 30 is on my last list. So 30 is the smallest number that is a common multiple of all three numbers. It is said to be the least common multiple of 3, 6, and 15. Here is another example. Find the LCM of 4, 9, and 12. So I'm going to list those numbers out, 4, 9, and 12. I'm going to start counting by my largest one. 12, 24, 36, 48. I'm now going to go up until at least either I find a common multiple or until I get to at least 48 in the 9 column. 9, 18, 27, 36. I found a common multiple here, so I'm going to check to see if it's on the 4 list. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, and yes, 36 is on that list. So I found my least common multiple, or LCM, of 4, 9, and 12. It is 36. I want to point out that you can always multiply these three numbers together to find a common multiple of those three numbers, but that common multiple is not necessarily the least common multiple. In this case, 4 times 9 times 12 is 432, which, as evidenced by my skip counting here, is definitely not the least common multiple of the three numbers. Here's another example. Find the LCM of 3, 12, and 15. I'm going to start by looking at my largest number, 15, and I'm going to count by it. 15, 30, 45, 60. Now when I come across a multiple that I know is on one of my other lists, I obviously don't have to list out every single multiple of that number. So for example, I recognize right away that 60 is a multiple of 12. So I know somewhere along this list, if I were to list all these out, I know I'd eventually come to 60. I also know that 60 is going to be a multiple somewhere way down the line of 3, because I know 3 times 20 equals 60. So here is my least common multiple of 3, 12, and 15 is 60. Here is one last example. Find the LCM of 8, 12, and 20. I'm going to start counting by my largest number, 20, 40, 60. Now I do recognize that 60 is going to be on this list. However, 60 is not going to be on my 8 list, because I know 56 is a multiple of 8, and then 64 is, but 60 is not. So it is not my least common multiple of all three numbers. So in this case, I'm going to have to keep going. 80. Now 80 is going to be on my 8's list, but 80 is not a multiple of 12. 100, 120. I recognize another one that now is a multiple of 12. So I know somewhere down the line here, 120 is on this list. The question is it on the 8's list? So I'm going to go to since 120 is a fairly large number, I'm going to go to a multiple of 8 that I know, which is 8 times 10 of 80. And I'm going to keep going from there. 88, 96, 104, 112. And yes, 120 is a multiple of 8. So 120 is the least common multiple of 8, 12, and 20.